The conference is now being recorded.
I know I can't hear you, but I just hope that all of you have somehow coped with the wave 2 of COVID, which hit all of us in the Q1 in a very difficult manner. And many of us fell sick, including me. I also got infected. And I know some of our friends in the analyst world, I knew at that time that they and their family members also suffered. So I hope we've all recovered and we're back to our normal selves. Talking about, I think, the Q1 of this year, when we started off the quarter, obviously we had the momentum of Q4 of the previous financial year with us, and that continued in the initial few days, I think about 2 weeks or so. We were very happy with the momentum that we were seeing in the market in terms of demand in the first 2 weeks of April. And suddenly the wave 2 intensified in most of the markets. It started with Maharashtra, the lockdowns, the measures to contain the infection was started off the markets, the shops limited opening times, and then it spread to other markets. Kerala, as we know, is perhaps the most impacted market even today, and Maharashtra is. And then as the monsoon had sort of in a way become due, I think monsoon arrived in some parts of our markets with a bang. There was a huge thunder and we had huge rains to start with. And so in many ways, I know it was not quite a normal quarter in many ways. And not being a normal quarter, at the same time being compared with 2 quarters which were really outlier 2 quarters. I mean, if we normally, what do? We compare our performance in this quarter vis-a-vis the same quarter last year, which was an outlier quarter in terms of the impact of COVID on that. So it was not a normal quarter. And sequentially, if you look at the preceding quarter, we perhaps had the strongest quarter that we can hope to see at any point in time, even when COVID is not there, in terms of demand and everything. So obviously, it's a quarter which is very difficult to compare and draw any meaningful conclusions from it, because in terms of volume growth, we have reported 66% growth in our volumes and 68% value growth, which if we look at in the background where the pan-India DIPP data says that in this quarter the industry has grown by 53%. Our volume of 66% growth seems higher than that. But I'm also conscious of the fact that last year when the demand was hit, perhaps our markets were hit more. So from that perspective, the 66% growth also is a little bit of reflection of the fact that perhaps the growth is coming from a lower base compared to the pan-India base that DIPP data is comparing it with. But even then, like I said, it's good to sort of at least see the volumes where they have been in Q1. Compared to Q4, like I said, none of us, I think, expected that Q4 will get repeated in Q1, and it didn't. And we've had about 26% degrowth in volume in Q1 compared to if we compare sequentially. That's how the markets have been, and that's how we try to cope with that. But I think overall, if we look at the situation, it's perhaps a lot better than what many of us are fearing, given the intensity of wave 2 of COVID. If we look at the realization, which obviously all of you have done your calculations, while it's more or less flat, at just a little over 1% increase in price realization per ton compared to the last year same quarter. Sequentially, we've seen a significant improvement, because I think what had happened was in February, March, the prices had started seeing a little bit of softening, which got reversed sometime in the month of May and June. We saw the strength persisting. As a result of that, we've had a good price realization from our markets. And although the costs were going up all the time, we still managed to sort of have the pricing in the market supporting our P&L. As a result of which we have, I think, reported, it does appear a little bit less sequentially compared to about a little over 200 crores of EBITDA down to about 188 crores in this particular quarter. But compared to the same quarter last year, it's a huge increase. We're talking about 88-90% increase over last year. The more important thing, I think, that despite the volume looking so much stronger, Even on per ton basis, the EBITDA this particular quarter has looked very good. We're talking about 1380 rupees or thereabout, which obviously has come largely from market pricing. But let's not also take away the impact that we are seeing, that with the efforts that I have reported last quarter, even in the preceding quarter, in terms of changing our product mix, changing our market mix more towards the markets which are closer to us, more towards rural and semi-urban markets, more towards market which consume the blended cement, which is PPC, but also an impact of the increasing volume that we are seeing in terms of the Strongcrete, our premium cement in the market. All that on a blended basis has given us the improvement in pricing and improvement also in the EBITDA gross figure, and also EBITDA in terms of per ton. In terms of further details, we do know that the operating costs have been marginally down over last year, but obviously they look higher sequentially. On that, I think what's an important point to remember is that in Q1 this year, finally we took the annual shutdown, the maintenance shutdown at our Chittapur Gulbarga plant, which last year, in fact the whole year last year we worked without taking a shutdown in that particular kiln. So that was completed during this particular quarter. So that had the maintenance costs coming in. Obviously, part of that also goes into variable cost, but the refractories which we replace are booked as in the materials cost. And the other snowballing impact of that was that we obviously did not want to lose the market, especially when the profitability was looking good. We shifted some clinker from our Devapur plant to Chittapur plant to make up for the required shortfall of clinker there, which obviously pushed up the operating costs. And also the volume, perhaps I certainly think could have been a little bit better, but that demand around Chittapur was for OPC cement, which, given the high cost of landed cost of clinker from Devapur, did not make enough sense to keep selling OPC from Chittapur in the quantities that the market may have needed. So that also led to a little bit of volume being sacrificed, purely because there was no point if there's no money being made in that sale. So those are the, I would say, impacts of, one is the maintenance cost itself. Second is the cost of transferring clinker. Third is the cost of business that we didn't book because it didn't make enough financial sense. So that impact is already baked in the cost numbers that all of you would have seen. Second is also sequentially when we are looking at prices or the costs, the fact of the matter is in this quarter we were again hit by the shutdown of several thermal power plants because the demand for power was not enough. As a result of which, all three of our plants had to start procuring fly ash from power plants which were much farther away compared to our normal sources of fly ash, which put some pressure on the fly ash sourcing. And when I'm saying some pressure, Jalgaon plant, where our fly ash landed cost was the cheapest, even that had suffered tremendously because we were having to, Jalgaon plant having to get fly ash from power plants near Nagpur. So you can imagine the amount of cost increase that causes. Be that it may, those are the various factors which have gone in. And the power and fuel costs in sympathy with, I think, overall increase in fuel costs all over, including the entire industry. I don't think anybody could be immune to the increase in power and fuel costs. Our good news is that, compared to the inflation that we have seen in various grades of coal or in petcoke, on a year-on-year basis, our increase is just about 8.6%. But on the sequential basis from the preceding quarter, it's again up by about 6.8%. Given the most of the results that we've seen from our peers in the industry, I think we have managed to absorb, let's say, the market price of the price increase in fuels rather well. And while we've been hit, but we've not been hit as badly as we could have if we had not covered our fuel in time at onto favorable terms. So besides booking the fuel in time, we also have obviously benefiting from what we keep reporting from our company in terms of the flexibility of fuel. So whichever fuel becomes commercially most viable, we switch very, very quickly. And the sources while they move on one hand, on the other hand, we also have been trying to increase the usage of alternate fuels at our plants. And I know that question, most of the people have that question almost every quarter. So I thought I'll just point out right now also that in this particular quarter, our total, let's say, fuel mix has been coal around 77%, out of which 70% has been domestic coal, about 30% imported coal. Petcoke is down to now just about 12%, and alternate fuels make up for a total of about 11% in the fuel mix that we used in the last quarter. But I would urge you people to remember that the fuel mix is moving all the time based on the pricing of different fuels. It means nothing. We don't know how it will be in Q2 or Q3, but I'm giving you the numbers as we have for Q1. In terms of let's say, the pressures on fuel, I'm sure all of you were quite shocked to see the domestic petcoke price, the way it's been sort of jacked up suddenly by, I'm told, about 1,400 rupees a ton at the start of August. Obviously, this is how the fuel costs are, or rather the petcoke cost is going to go. Petcoke is going to sort of get out of fashion. Most of us will perhaps start using the normal coal all over again, which most of us have already shifted. But even the 12% that we consumed the last quarter, I don't know how viable that will remain in the coming few months unless it gets moderated. So I was coming back to, you would have seen the EBITDA at 188 crores. The other important point I want to point out is that the finance costs in this quarter compared to the same quarter last year are down by about 41%. Last year we had a total finance cost in this particular in the same quarter at about 27 crores, which are now under 16 crores. Function of two factors. One, the very aggressive deleveraging of balance sheet that we've done by reducing the debt, and second, I think many of you would remember that our rates of interest were reset given the improved liquidity in the country, are very soft interest rates. So all that impact put together has brought down the finance costs, which obviously have resulted in the PBT showing even more magnified improvement compared to the improvement in EBITDA. So that's the important part there. In terms of the overall blended cement sale, PPC and Strongfeit put together, we are very close to 70% actually in this quarter. And the Strongfeit itself, I would say in our what we call our core markets, the core markets where we have our strongest brand presence, which include North Telangana, which include Marathwada, which include Jalgaon, and which also includes North Karnataka. In these markets, many of the places we are actually selling Strongfeit in excess of 15%, going up to 18% of our total B2C sales, which is obviously once again in this quarter proving that the value proposition that we have of the quality vis-a-vis the price is a very, very compelling value proposition. And as more consumers are seeing the benefits of Strongfeit, we are finding more and more customers. In fact, in the recent past, although we do sell it on completely on B2C basis, but some of the fairly large construction sites have also started buying Strongfeit at the price that we are selling, purely because it helps them to reduce their cost of construction, even if they pay us more cost Strongfeit per bag. Few other things I think are important to note. On the debt front, in the last quarter, at the end of 30th June, we had paid 61 crores more to the banks against the outstanding loans. And between the closure of the last quarter, that is June ending quarter, and now we've repaid another 62 crores. So total further repayment of debt in the first 4 months of this year amount to about 123 crores. As a result of which, when we opened the year with a bank loan of 774 crores, it's now down to 650 at the gross level. And on the net level, obviously, with the cash in hand being there, it would be somewhat under 600 crores is the debt position as we carry now. And partly, I would also like to point out that although it's a normal cycle, but this particular year, given the trend that we saw in fuel costs, we had decided to procure coal at a time which looked good, and as a result of which, a very significant amount of money in this particular in the quarter that ended on 30th June, we've invested in buying coal and stocking it up. One, normally we stock it up for the monsoon period. More importantly, this time maybe we've taken slightly bigger bet on that coal because we have tried to cover the coal in advance of price inflation. And although it soaked up a significant part of our cash flow from the quarter, we believe it's a good investment because this will help us in absorbing the increasing fuel cost a little bit better in the months that we are going through. And that obviously is beneficial to the shareholders because we could have used that money either to reduce the debt further, but on that the saving would have been far less compared to the saving that we will be able to have in the fuel costs that we consume as we go. So there is a significant increase in working capital, but it's all for a good cause. I just want to point that out. In terms of railroad mix, I think in this particular quarter our rail mix is about 22% and the balance being transported by road. I would say net debt position I've already briefed all of you about. I guess all of you are fully aware already we have once again earned the certificate of Great Place to Work based on, and in this particular year, like I think I said earlier also, that I was a little worried because this was a year in which we didn't give any increments to people. On the contrary, some of the senior people we had also asked them to make a sacrifice, and some salaries were paid lower. So lots of things that happened. And we were a little worried whether our colleagues will once again vote in favor of this company still being a great place to work. The fact is, despite all those hiccups, we have not only retained the certification, we've retained that with a much higher level of score, both on trust and pride for our company, which makes us very, very happy. That means the employees the belief that they're only motivated by money has been completely disproved. And they value what we've done for the people throughout the year in terms of looking after them, whether it's medical care, whether it's about their well-being overall, whether the families' care, or even in terms of vaccinations now. Vaccination obviously a little bit of function of the availability of vaccines in different states, but I'm happy to report that at our in the Karnataka plant, the vaccination, including to our contract staff, is almost complete. With 99% plus coverage, at least I'm talking about first dose. At our Maharashtra plant in Jalgaon, the coverage is nearing 80%. It's 76, 77% today. The only place where we have not been able to make enough progress in terms of vaccination is our plant in Telangana, and for some reason Telangana state is not able to make available enough vaccine. And that is true of I think yesterday in Times of India, I've seen the Pan India data on the first dose having been administered in various states. And in that particular list, I was not surprised to see Telangana being at a fairly low level. But compared to the statewide vaccination, the first dose, I think we have done better. Our vaccination has been 52%, whereas I think at the state level, the first dose has been given only to just about 26-27% people. So we're trying to do our best, and I think everybody is appreciating the efforts that we are making in making sure that people remain safe. There has been no real progress in terms of the large projects that we have spoken about, and everybody is keen to know whether we are sort of beginning to get into implementation mode. Not really, because we do want the COVID impact not to get aggravated because we get into something a little more aggressively, and at the same time because the demand also suddenly was not seen peaking as quickly as we were earlier expecting. So we are okay in terms of time. Although all the preparations are being made, we are being ready, but have we moved ahead? No. Have we placed the order for waste heat recovery plant? On that front, I must acknowledge I'm myself a little bit frustrated and disappointed that we've not been able to place the order. And the delay, I can assure all the investors, is not from our side. The delay is from the vendors who have kept changing their stance at times. Suddenly they will come back with some technical confirmation when we want to sign the contract. They say, no, not this much power, it will be less. And some of the time the quotations are being revised in the meantime, saying the steel prices have gone up and there's a lot more input of steel, so the prices need to be revised. So that has become a little bit frustrating process of negotiations with the vendors. And that's the result that we've not been able to place the order. Not that we are not keen, but obviously you can't place the order unless the vendor takes a position where we can place the order. So we are still hoping that we should be able to do that in the next few weeks. But I've said that earlier also, and I've been disappointed. So I'm a little bit cautious this time in terms of not on our keenness to do, but more from the perspective of the vendors being able to sign the contract with us. In terms of the current market scenario, I think all of us are aware that we are in the monsoon period. Typically, all of us do expect the impact of monsoon on the demand, and this year is no exception. We've had extensive rainfall, as I mentioned earlier, starting with June, and July has been one of the wettest months in most of our markets. And the only thing that we can say is that typically what we would expect that a significant drop in demand compared to Q1 in Q2, given the fact that Q1 was impacted by COVID wave 2, we are expecting that the volumes in Q2 may not go down compared to Q1, and we would expect volumes to stay somewhere around the level that we saw in Q1. So that is one indication that's available as of now. But on pricing side, we've certainly seen that there has been pressure on pricing, and already the realizations compared to the realization Q1, they are looking softer, they're looking lower, depending on which market we're looking at and which week we are looking at. On an average, I would say between 10 to 15 rupees per bag seems to have been the reduction in market prices of cement till now after we exited last quarter. In terms of forecast, beyond saying that Q2 volumes should be similar to the Q1 volumes, I'm not in a position to hazard further guesses on terms of total volume. But given the indication that we have given, not just recently in the last quarter, but even earlier, we still think our total volume in this year should get very close to 6 million ton, if not beyond that, which is a 20% growth over last year. That's based on the visibility of things currently, assuming that even if wave 3 comes, it will be nowhere as dislocating as last year wave 1 was. So 6 million tons we are still gunning for. In terms of pricing, in terms of EBITDA, unfortunately, I will not be able to give any guidance because that, as I always claim, that is something that we take from the market and we don't make the price. Cost indications are that, despite the consistent pressure on costs of inputs, we believe that in H2 we should start seeing some softening on the cost side. How much will that be and how will we sort of anyway find it? It's a function of how the signals will change between now and the third quarter, which has to start after about 2 months' time. But the hypothesis still stays in place. The volume is there. Pricing, I don't give any guidance ever on. On costs, hopefully, this should be the last quarter in terms of sustained increase in costs, as we have seen. Going forward, there should be some relief from that. Beyond that, I don't think I have anything to add in my initial summary. But I've tried to answer most of the questions that I keep getting after I've sort of given the summary. And I'll stop now and wait for the questions. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sumangal Nevatia from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir, and congratulations on stellar performance in these challenging times. A couple of questions. So firstly, very detailed and very helpful opening remarks, so thanks for that. But still a couple of questions. Firstly, you said very limited progress on overall project level. But just want to check specifically, have you moved anything forward with respect to our Rajasthan mine lease transfer background process and also with respect to a debottlenecking at Devapur?
Okay, I can answer that straight away. The debottlenecking project at Devapur, as we speak right now, is in the final stage. Absolutely. In fact, the cement mill which is being upgraded is right now under a shutdown for completing this. So by the end of this month, we should have that debottlenecking project completely implemented at Devapur. That's as we, like I said, it's finally now under a shutdown only for commissioning that part. So that's one. On Rajasthan mines, fairly recently, the Rajasthan government from Jaipur has written to the mines department, and also that obviously has landed up with the Udaipur area in charge of mines. I think they call it controller of mines. And I'm told that that particular office is in the process of preparing the recommendations, which should be favorable, because everything that was holding it up so far has been sorted out. And the process is on with the government, and we are hoping that in the next few days, if not within this week, the Chittorgarh controller of mines from that side, the file will move to the state government, which is in Jaipur.
Your question is answered, Mr. Nevatia?
Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. Understood, sir. Thank you. Sir, and with respect to the delay in WHRS, etc., I mean, what sort of capex should we build this year, and then large part will be pushed to next year, right? So if you can give some guidance on the capex part.
Yeah, sure. See, as we are talking right now, we do believe that the capex, the total capex on our waste heat recovery plant should be between 60 and 70 crores. Given the fact that when people get in, I don't think more than 20 crores will get invested this year if we can manage it. That is, if we end up signing a good contract soon enough. I don't think it's more than 20 crores in this year. A balance will go into next financial year.
Okay. And what would be the remaining maintenance and the debottlenecking capex this year? So overall, should we take something closer to 50 to 75 crores?
I think that might be, if you're not counting waste heat recovery in that, then we may not need 60 to 70 crores in this year. It'll perhaps say, well, to my mind, between 40 and 50 crores, not more than that.
Understood. And just one last question on the cost part. So you mentioned and you explained a few one-offs in this quarter with respect to higher freight, fly ash, and also some transfer of material from towards Chittorgarh. So what would be the one-off or in other words, say a cost impact of these one-off items in 1Q?
So Mangal, they are not one-offs. It's a scheduling issue.
Yeah.
They are not in the comparable quarters. And maintenance is not a one-off. You incur that every year. It's just that this quarter's maintenance is not comparable to either sequentially the preceding quarter or the same quarter last year. So I won't call them one-offs. But yes, whenever shutdowns happen, if we have short of clinker and things like that, those things are not major. Major cost is in terms of maintenance, which on an annual basis does get sorted out, right? I was pointing out more from the quarter-to-quarter comparison.
Yeah. No, sir, but at least with respect to procuring fly ash and additional freight costs and fly ash, what that would have been?
To my mind, that impact would be close to about 3 crores rupees for all the three plants put together.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much. I have a few questions more, but I'll join the queue back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pankaj Tanna from Varun Investments. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. One, two numbers. I've been a shareholder for a long time, and I've seen the progress of your accreditation as far as your work.
Mr. Tanna, so your voice is not audible, sir.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Tanna, sir, I would request you to move to a better reception area. We are unable to hear you clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is better.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I've been a shareholder for a long time. I've seen the progress of the company by way of improved realizations, better profitability, a wonderful website, Hello. So only thing I wanted to know is, why are we still hovering around at a 5,000 rupee per ton enterprise value as compared to the others which are at ridiculous price?
That I think our market analysts would be able to answer better than I can. Even I am not able to understand why we are being valued at where we are being valued. I mean, we know the intrinsic value of our company. We know the replacement cost of our establishment. We also know the value that our efficiencies and some other strengths that we have as a company and the management team. We deserve a lot better valuation. Why this is so low? Perhaps some people on this call may be able to explain that better than I can. I am completely at a loss to understand that.
Okay, because the biggest shareholder of your company are mutual funds.
Yes. Well, you are right. I didn't want to sort of mention that because that's not for me to. It's a market operation. But the fact of the matter is that we've had some very large shareholders who've been invested in our company for a very long time, right? So somewhere I'm seeing that two of the largest investors who are both mutual funds, both of them have decided to do their profit booking around this time, and both of them are offloading some volumes almost every week, So if the supply remains that high, perhaps that could be a reason of overhang on the share price, possibly. Like I said, but I'm not an expert to comment on that. But I'm seeing that two large shareholders as of now are in the profit booking mode rather.
Okay. And I don't think you're in the position to answer because the next query that I have is that somebody was mentioning that for enterprise value being so low, you could be a target for a Shree Cement inquiry for takeover. I don't want you to answer. It's just a rumor that is floating around.
That, like I said, I won't like to respond to at all, excepting that we are not in touch with anyone, nor has anyone contacted us as we speak today on anything on those lines. But yes, I completely agree with you. Grossly undervalued, and from market speculation perspective, yes, you're right, and people will perceive that as a risk.
Okay, I mean, but I think you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, it reflects in the way your website is there, the way you are marketing your products. It's definitely wonderful to be, owning your company.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Really grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanjay Nandi from Ratnabali Investment. Please go ahead.
Sir, can you please clarify on the volume number exactly for this quarter?
Volume number for this quarter is 13.61 lakh tons.
13.61 lakh tons. And just as a follow-up note on that Rajasthan mines, like we are in the process of getting all those regulatory clearances. So what kind of mining capacity do we have in Rajasthan, if we can kindly clarify that thing, sir?
Look, as far as we are aware, the reserves in those mines are ballpark in the range of 100 million tons. And from the beginning, we believe that if we actually set up a 2 million ton capacity there, it will have enough limestone from 40 to 50 years. That's what our basis for our interest remains there. But as we also know from experience, that whatever are the estimated reserves in limestone mines, when we start doing the mining, invariably we find more reserves as we go deeper. So that I'm giving you the data that we have based on which we are taking with you today.
Okay. And so just wanted to understand one thing, like a bit of clarification on that mine, like that thing is like pending with Orient Papers, right?
Exactly. That was the hold up. The mine used to be with Orient Paper. We had applied for a transfer to Orient Cement way back in 2013, which because of various procedural delays, the government of Rajasthan did not transfer. First, they started raising dispute about the stamp duty. The stamp duty was clarified. Whatever they wanted, we paid the extra stamp duty also in 2014 or 2014, yeah. And suddenly in January 2015, as even the new mining law came in, we started talking about transfer charges. And we were contesting the transfer charges, saying this is not a transfer. This is the merger of a company under a court order effective 1st April 2012. The new law has come in the month of January 2015. How can we apply January 2015 law to a demerger that happened in 2012, which we have applied to you at that time? You have delayed the transfer. Why should we pay transfer charges? So that was the dispute all along. So now with the latest amendment to the Mines Act which has come, which says that no transfer charges applicable now. So the file is moving again because we didn't want to take on just transfer charges on that much limestone. You can imagine how much will be amount to in terms of the cost of the project. So thankfully, and we were not the only one. There were several mines like this which were getting stuck with different state governments. That's why the central government has amended that law. And based on the new law, our file is being moved now.
Okay. Understood, sir. And sir, do we have the lease for that mine, which is like under this kind of like a litigation thing happening up?
It's a long history. I don't think on one call we can go through all that, the entire matter of some mines. Broadly, I've told you where we are right now. Otherwise, I can have a separate call with you some other time because otherwise we'll spend my 1 hour will go into explaining the complications of that mining lease.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much, sir. It's back in the queue, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Milind Suresh Raginwar from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Milind. We can hear you.
Hi, sir. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. One thing, just in terms of the volume dip that we have seen, compared to that, our freight cost has been increasing on a sequential basis also. Apart from the the inward movement of freight, is there anything that has contributed for this?
Well, the outward movement of freight, outward freight cost is a lot higher than inward freight cost.
So you said that it is the clinker cost that we are flowing from?
No. See, that is only for the quantity of, whatever quantity of clinker that we transfer from Devapur to Chittapur. That is not the overall freight cost that we are referring to is the impact of the increase in diesel costs, which obviously if you are transporting goods, every transporter will increase the freight rates. That's all our contracts are built in a manner where the adjustment in the freight rate being given to the transporter is as part of the agreement related to the diesel cost. When diesel costs goes up, we adjust the freight cost upwards. When the diesel costs go down, we adjust that downwards. So whenever diesel costs move up, it will impact the freight cost. That's the nature of that cost.
Yes, sir. On a per ton basis, this cost is about 6% on a sequential basis. I just wanted to understand, is it on a per ton basis? So
no. On a per ton basis, also certainly the diesel costs have moved up, and we have our freight costs higher per ton definitely. The way we publish our accounts, you would have seen that the entire cost of freight, packing, forwarding, everything is put together. So not only is the impact of freight cost there is an impact also of the cost of plastics. If you've been tracking either the industry which sells plastic or the consumers of plastic, you would have seen the impact on their costs being very, very large because during this quarter there was a huge inflation in the cost of plastic. The cost of bags went up by a very, very large percentage. So what you are seeing is a combined impact of the increase in diesel costs and the cost of bags that you use. On per ton basis, if you are looking at that cost, I would say packing, freight and forwarding charges are up at 1,310 rupees in this quarter, vis-a-vis the last year same quarter of 1,241, and vis-a-vis sequentially the previous quarter at 1,244. And this has got nothing to do with clinker transportation. Please don't confuse it.
So that is coming in the consumption of raw material, is it?
Correct.
Okay, got it. And sir, will you like to just quantify this maintenance cost in the other expense? How big that would be?
Ballpark, a kiln that size takes, and when we are doing the annual maintenance of the kiln, we also typically take down the CPP also during the same time, the captive power plant. Total costs, ballpark, would always work out around 10-12 crores of one single maintenance.
10 to 12 crores. And in terms of power and fuel, sir, what would be our mix now?
I just gave it here.
Okay. I just missed that.
Yeah, maybe you'll have to refer to the recorded conversation. I've already said it.
No problem, sir. No problem. And in yeah. Okay, sir. Okay, got it. Just on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik Maheshwari from HSBC Securities. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. First of all, congratulations on the results. Very good set of results. Just wanted to ask you if there is any update on the Devapur line expansion, and how would you think of it together with what we are chasing at Rajasthan? If that, so any timelines there?
You're talking about additional capacity being put up, or the question that I have already answered regarding the debottlenecking?
No, sir. The additional another line expansion other than the debottlenecking.
We, as I mentioned, in this particular quarter, we have no progress to report beyond what we reported earlier, that the environment clearance for that project has been received. Right? Mm-hmm. And we still have to actually get on with the expansion work, because during the COVID time, we've not been able to get the resources together even to do the basic work before the material can be ordered. Right? So, okay. But we do believe that sooner than later we should be able to take up. We are very, very keen on starting that expansion at Devapur. Given where we stand today, it seems very difficult that we will be able to do that within FY23, which was the ambition, because we've not been able to sort of to form up lots of details and not place the order. And as you might know, the typical lead time for most of the items, the lead time itself is about 1 year, whether it's a new kiln or new grinding mill or whatever. So it will perhaps move into FY24, and hopefully the early in FY24 is where we think this project will be available for commissioning.
And sir, the other thing was on your clinker conversion ratio. So just wanted to check if PPC and strong sheet has become 70% of volumes. Has the conversion ratio improved, and do you think, sir, it can sustain and improve further, so that it helps on the volume growth going ahead after FY22 also?
As you yourself have said, it's a function of the blending. If you are asking for Q1, the ratio is definitely at 1.42 compared to 1.33 sequentially of the preceding quarter. And so 21 as a whole, we had 1.36. Even the blended rate.
So do you see this improvement to sustain, or you see the product mix changing in the sequential quarters and probably will again be at 1.36, 1.35? And any endeavors there?
I think I'll perhaps maintain just one particular issue. While we are making all-out efforts to increase our blended cement sale, which should actually mean they should keep going up, but if we get good opportunity in the market to supply OPC to a large infrastructure product at a good price, I'm not going to shy away only to report this number. My total volumes and my total margins multiplied give me the total profit. All these things are being tweaked on an ongoing basis. Intent is to sell more blended, but there has been a time, and let's face it, in Q1 itself, there have been times in the market where we actually have got a price better from the large projects compared to my retail market. Even that has happened. So at that time, should I insist on better clinker ratio, or should I make more money? Yeah. So these are practical day-to-day business operational decisions. Investors think there's a policy decision to keep going that way. If my OPC price realization was giving me a profit that was higher than my selling on PPC basis, I sold OPC. I will sell OPC once again if that situation is available. These numbers emerge at the end of the period when we start doing the calculations. When we are doing the business, it's all a function of where can I sell, what's the best price, and what's the product mix which makes money for me today. Numbers, when we percentages, 1.4, these are all end of the period calculations. We don't fix that in our mind and take a decision based on an order. That's purely based on how much margin is there in that particular order, and if it makes sense, we'll book it. The 1.42 can go down to 1.4, and now last year, the whole year, if we look at it, we operated at 1.6, right? Before that was 1.30. Why is it looking a lot better in Q1 this year or Q1 last year? Because that time we managed to sell more in the B2C segment, and that effort is still on. But The point I'm making is, while total PPC sale and strong feed sale may keep going up, if my OPC sale also goes up, the proportion may look different. Although the total volume of blended sale will always be there, but as a percentage is always going up, I don't know. Are you getting my point? Percentage is...
Yeah. Yes, I got it.
So volume of PPC, volume-wise PPC strong feed will always be going up. As a percentage, I can't guarantee that.
Okay. And sir, as a percentage of strong feed on straight sale, how much is it? And sir, if you could also share the market mix percentage that you usually share, that would be
the entire market mix. I've told you, in our strongest markets where we've been there, where we have very strong brand, we are actually between 15 and 18%. Overall, as a company, we are at about, again, we are a little bit down in this particular quarter at 8%. And that's a function of the fact that any premium product, anytime you're trying to sell, the customer has to be converted at the retail counter. And during this quarter, most of the retail counters have either been closed or have been allowed to open only for 2 hours in the morning. If you're in Bombay, you would know what the instructions were for retail markets. So the conversion momentum that we saw in the preceding quarter is a little bit less in this quarter, purely because retail counters is closed. But we are at 8%, but it still means that in the stronger places, stronger markets, I named them earlier also, North Telangana, Marathwada, Jalgaon, we are actually 15 to 18% of our B2C volumes in those markets on this. And obviously there are some markets where we are not as strong, and there the percentage is significantly lower. And that's why the blended in last quarter has been at 8%.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Pankaj Tanna from Varun Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm back again. I just was wondering about volumes. One question is this quarter we've done 1.3. I think we did 1.6 in the previous quarter. So we probably do the same sort of run rate for the next 2 quarters, another 3 odd million tons.
I would expect that while Q2 might be similar, we did exactly as I said earlier, 13.61 lakh ton, 1.36 million if you wish. I'm seeing Q2 volumes remaining similar. Q3 we are hoping that post the monsoon getting over and hopefully there will be no large impact of wave 3 even if it comes. I would expect Q3 volumes to be better than Q1 and Q2 volumes this particular year. And obviously Q4 volumes are always the largest. I mean, last year also, if you notice, the volume that we did in Q4 were far, far larger than what anybody had expected. So, the Q4 the volumes can, I think last year we did about 18.5 lakh ton in Q4.
It is almost over 90%.
Precisely, 92-93% in that range. So, like I said, Q4 is different, and Q3 volume should be higher than Q2. That's how we are planning currently. So, total annual volume I've already indicated. We are gunning for 6 million tons this year. That's what I said earlier.
Okay, great. And just one more question is, because I'm new to your conversation. So, what is your expansion plan in terms of today we are at 8 million tons. So, with the additional, what are you planning as far as what's on your cards? You said you should be on and running by FY24.
Yeah, so by FY24 will be one part of our expansion, which will take us to about 11.5 million tons by that time. And we would like to add another 3 million tons in about 2 years post that. So by FY26, we are talking about 14.5 million tons. That's the plan.
And for this, the additional 3.5 that you want to go to 11.5, what would be your projected cost for that, the expansion of 3.5 million tons?
Typically, the cost should be around 1,600 crores.
1,600 crores. Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashok Patel from Molecule Ventures. Please go ahead.
Yeah, congratulations on robust set of numbers despite the challenging business environment. I just wanted to know what's our debt positioning right now.
Oh, we come back to the same question again. This is a problem. In the initial phases, that's why I answer all these questions right at the start. but people maybe join late and then I have to repeat these things. Okay, once again, I just hope that I don't have to answer this question again in the same conference. We started the year, as I mentioned, at 774 crores. Till now, we paid 123 crores out of that. The gross bank loan on our books is 652 crores. Net of cash in hand, it's somewhat under 600 crores. 650 gross level. I think about 580 or thereabouts at the net level.
Okay, so as per our previous con calls, we are still on track to get debt free by FY22 itself.
We never said debt free. I mean, but the debt should be down to just about
100 crores.
100 crores between, just about that level. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay, sir. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, you may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Naveen Sahadev from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi Naveen. Hi.
Right. Good afternoon, sir, and great presentation and definitely great results. So just one question, and it could be a follow-up. So you just, in the previous question, you said from 8 to 11.5 and then to 14. Where does Rajasthan project fit in there? Is it because you said it can support 2 million tons?
Yeah. No, it's not. Again, Naveen, I recall we had this conversation in last quarter. Till Rajasthan issues are sorted out, I'm not building any plans for that. Once that becomes absolutely certain in our hand, then in that project we'll have to first start acquiring land, which these days is another thing on which nobody can predict how much time frame would that take, right? So the Rajasthan project is very much on the cards. We're very keen on doing it. It's just that I'm not able to put a timeline. Unlike the other two projects that I'm able to at least say when. In Rajasthan, till I get the mining lease in my name, and then till I'm able to acquire the land, it's very, very difficult to say by this date we'll get on with the project. We want to do it. It's on the cards. Timeline, just wait till this current phase in which Rajasthan government is processing our file till this gets over.
No, my fear, frankly, is that we got a little unlucky the last time with the government, Arjun, because it was in Orient Paper's name and because of delay denial on their front, it got delayed. Now that an amendment has come for a free transfer, but there is also a timeline which says that mining lease has to be operational by March 24. So two parts here that.
I mean, if we get that, we'll obviously have to meet that commitment. So we will tweak our plans. I'm not sort of talking about this barring any eventuality which we may have to take care of. Devapur would still handle. Maybe there might be a toss-up between if we have to do Rajasthan first, then we say do Rajasthan first and then go to Chitapur. So those will happen. I mean, nothing that we are planning as of now can be written in stone. It's the plan today, which I'm presenting to the best of our belief that this is possible. Like you said, if Rajasthan mines come to us, all of us know that going to Rajasthan and opening up a new market, finding diversified markets would be good for the company and good for the shareholders. We'll give that priority. But I can't tell that today that I'm giving that priority without having a mining lease with me. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. These situations are dynamic, and we will respond to the situation in the best way possible in the interest of the shareholders.
Correct. So if I were to just confirm this, as in if I understood this correct, if Rajasthan comes the way ideally it should, then that will be the priority over Chitapur. Is that a fair understanding?
Yes.
Great. That's what I wanted to know. And I'm sure shareholders will also be equally delighted to see that as a priority over South. So great, and all the very best for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Gaurav Birimal from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Hi. Hello, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. Sir, I wanted some color on your power cost. What is the spot rate that you see currently for domestic, international coal and petcoke? And by when do you expect it will flow into our numbers, assuming it's a rolling kind of a booking that you do and it flows into our numbers? That's
No, sorry, I couldn't get exactly what you wanted to ask.
So I just wanted to know what is the spot rate that you see for imported and domestic coal and petcoke, and by when do you think these current prices, spot prices, will flow into our P&L?
Okay. Well, the international prices, they keep fluctuating. We are talking about the ballpark about $100 a ton as the imported coal today. The imported petcoke is at about $170 a ton. But we are not booking at these prices because we do believe these prices may soften a little bit. So currently we are not booking it because we have covered ourselves for the next few months well enough. And we will keep in mind the lead time because I'm not placing any orders at these prices. Let me not give you that number. And when we're ready with that number, we'll tell you. Because if I'm able to get the prices softening up a little bit, maybe that's the time for me to book again.
Fair enough, sir. Thank you.
So as of now, we are not booking at these prices. I've given you the prices, but I'm not booking at those prices.
Fair enough, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Milind Suresh Raginwar from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for this follow-up opportunity. We just, you indicated that the capex for the next leg of Devapur would be around 1,600 crores.
Yeah.
This 16 billion, would you like to have add some color on how we will be funding this?
How I'll be funding this is basically a function of my cash flows between now and the time that we need the money. Typically, we do believe that even after we, let's say, if this year we are not doing any major capex, we should be able to get our debt down very significantly, as we've already mentioned, right?
Yes.
So that will be the time where, assuming that there is not much debt left to be repaid in future, if you are still making similar amount of cash, that obviously will be the first thing to be used to fund the capex, right? Over and above that, we'll raise debt. But typically, I do know that this question was asked last quarter. The way I had answered was total capex for this going from 8 million tons to 14.5 million tons. I had indicated the total capex is going to be about 3,600 crores or thereabouts. And I had said that hopefully we should be able to fund that, at least half of that through our own cash flows and half of that through debt. But debt is not going to come on one date because these are two different projects at different points in time. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I still maintain that the broad guidelines that we have very clearly got from the board is that we would try to always be in the debt equity range which doesn't cross 1.5 even at the peak. That's the guideline we follow. And debt to EBITDA should stay at less than 3. That's the kind of debt that the board has asked us never to cross.
Understood. Right.
And within that, we'll be doing it. And in case we are going wrong with these numbers, then the company may need to think of perhaps getting some capital in. But that decision will be based on how the balance sheet looks at the time that we need to raise the debt.
Oh, okay.
That's the only way to do it, right? That's the best way to do it rather than taking an upfront decision today.
Right. And second thing is a small thing about this WHRS. Any specific timeline that we are looking for execution of that?
The timeline that the vendor has indicated to us that they are indicating that they should be able to complete the project in 10 months after we place the order. But we've not signed up yet, so that's what I'm telling you what they offer currently. They have said 10 months.
Got it. And the capex that you indicated there was about 60 to 70 odd crores in totality.
Yeah, that's right. Between 60
and 70 crores to be spent in this year, approximately.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. That is all.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question.
I think we have, in any case, run out of questions. Just about the time we're running out of time. So maybe we should just try and close it.
So there are no participants in the question queue. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude this conference. On behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.
Thank you everyone for joining once again, and thank you, Krupal, for hosting us once again.
Thank you. Thank you.